Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Mendez. I'm the State Assistance Director for the National Community Action, the National Association for State Community Services Programs. Thank you for joining us for this national webinar entitled Connect the Dots, Discovering What Works and Putting It to Use for Your Agency. This webinar is made possible through a grant from the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Community Services. And with that, I'm happy to introduce Kent Ackerman. He's with the Virginia Community Action Partnership, and I'm happy to introduce him at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Sandra, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate everybody's interest in this topic, and I look forward to spending about an hour with you. And we will ask you to do a few things during the session. First of all, if you have any technical questions, please submit them through the question feature on your control panel. And likewise, if you have some comments or questions about the content of the material that's being presented, also submit those through the questions feature that you can access. We will try, at least by the end of the session, to respond to questions that are received, and possibly, depending on how we make it through the material, we'll take a moment in the middle as well. Right now, everyone's phone, except for mine, I hope, is muted, meaning that I hope you're hearing me. And we'll probably keep phones muted. Potentially at the end, we may have a chance to field some comments through the audio, but typically we try to field them through the question box. Okay. Today's session will cover three specific areas of information. Hopefully, you've all received a handout copy of the webinar. Following the session, within the next day or so, I'll be sending you a link to the recording of the webinar, as well as a full copy of the presentation. And as you see, as I go through the presentation, there will be various resources that can be accessed through links that I'll be showing you as we move through. And so you will actually be able to research a lot more than the overview that I'm giving today. So the three components of the presentation, first of all, scanning the political environment, really setting the stage for one of the reasons that I feel most people have been interested in this topic in particular. And not only the political environment, but certainly the issue of looking at research that's been done and evidence that's out there on what works, what helps programs be as effective as possible, how do we strengthen our organizations to make the greatest difference to improve lives in communities in the areas that we're serving. So after scanning the political environment, I'll be highlighting some strategic actions that you could be considering for your organization and some tools to help you with those actions. And then finally looking at some resources that are out there showing the types of program models and organizational practices that really have been proven to be effective and to lead toward results to strengthen your organization. And one of those highlights certainly will be the CSBG Training and Technical Assistance Resource Center, which I hope many of you are familiar with, and I also hope by the end of this session you'll begin seeing it as a great resource for you and your organization. Okay, moving into the first part of this, one thing I like to say from my own experiences, there are times in my life that I will never forget exactly where I was or what I was doing at that particular moment. Dating myself a little, but I remember in 9th grade hearing over a loudspeaker that President Kennedy had been shot and our school being dismissed early. I remember in college being in my dorm, the hallway of my dorm, hearing that Martin Luther King had been shot. Also, certainly when 9/11 occurred, I think all of us can remember when we first heard of that, where we were and what our response was. Well, for those of us in the world of community action, I feel this is a moment that is embedded in our collective memories as much as any. President Obama's State of the Union address just over 2 years ago. Perhaps you weren't listening at the moment that he uttered the words about community action, but certainly once you heard them, I'm suspecting that you had a very strong reaction to that. When you get the copy of the PowerPoint presentation, if you notice, there will be certain images, and this one in particular are icons. At the bottom right of the photo, there's a small listen icon. If you'd like to replay that portion of the State of the Union address, you'll be able to do so. But taking from his State of the Union, you can see in red some of the specific phrases that stick with us in community action. The notion of painful cuts programs such as community action programs. And the next one in particular, eliminating whatever we can honestly afford to do with that. I think that really struck hard to those of us who have been working day in and day out, really seeing the differences that the work of community action agencies accomplish within communities that we serve.
Ken, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you put your PowerPoint in full screen for the viewers, please? They're asking.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. Okay, does everybody feel that's better? Raise your hand. By the way, there's our first slide with the listen icon. I just wanted to make sure you saw that. I'm sorry about that oversight. Okay, so going back to where we were, the cuts to community action, eliminating whatever we can honestly afford to do with that. But let's not fool ourselves. This didn't come out of the blue. It's not something that President Obama targeted without really having some prior thinking going on in at the federal level in terms of the challenges that are now confronting in the budget, in the political scenarios, of really cutting to the bone to make sure that the limited resources that are out there are doing the kind of work that's making a difference and showing results. And so if you go back to 2009, you see here 3 different communications from the Office of Management and Budget. The first one at the top from June of 2009, the one in the middle about a year and a half later, and then about a year after that in May of 2012, a third one. And if you look at the titles of each of these, I think it begins to sound as a mantra. Building rigorous evidence to drive policy. Evaluating programs for efficacy and cost efficiency. Use of evidence and evaluation in the 2014 budget. You can open each of these documents, as you see with the icons there. Looking at the most recent one, you notice the elements that are included in that, and I particularly point out item number 2 there, the use of comparative cost effectiveness data to allocate resources. Let's keep that in mind as we travel through the upcoming information here. Okay, since this movement has been in place, an organization called the Coalition for Evidence-Based Policy has been formed, and you see at the top there what their mission is, to increase government effectiveness through rigorous evidence about what works. And this organization in particular is a nonprofit organization. It's nonpartisan, and their board is made up of very high-level academic and research organizations. If you go to their website, and I'll give you the link to that later, you'll see that Harvard University, MIT, groups such as MDRC, Brookings, the ABT Associates, et cetera, groups that have been involved for years looking at research and coming up with reports showing the evidence-based activities of different types of interventions. And I highlighted in red there what I thought was some language that was really germane to what we're hearing, what the President, in fact, said in his State of the Union address. Government programs often implemented with little regard to evidence, costing billions of dollars, yet failing to address critical social problems. That's not to say that community action hasn't done good work, But as we all know, if we don't have the documented results, that work often falls by the wayside in terms of getting the type of continued backing and support. As a result of the coalition's activities, you see here a series of 6 different evidence-based policy initiatives that have been launched at the federal level. And a number of these certainly are germane to the type of work that we're involved with in community action. If you open these links and look, you'll learn about the programs, but also if you take a look at who's been funded, in very, very, very few instances will we find a community action agency. In fact, the ones that I looked at, I know the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, with well over 100 grantees, there was one community action agency that I could identify in that initiative. So nonetheless, what I want to portray here is that there are opportunities to look further to expand your work, and I certainly encourage you to learn about these and others as they come forth. Going further into what's been happening over the last 2 years with CSBG, I'm sure pretty much all of you on this call are aware of the current budget that initially started out having a proposed 50% cut or so to CSBG. But most importantly, the second bullet there showing where we're moving along here, creating the performance standards and the whole notion of competition for CSBG funds. That's still, the jury's out on that, but certainly the performance standards are in motion, as we'll see a little bit later on in the presentation. And here's the language again, the first bullet, funding regardless of level of performance. Difficult to determine what different agencies are accomplishing through CSBG funds. That's coming right out of the HHS budget language. The current budget proposal, as again, I'm sure all of you are aware, continue with the President's plan or proposal to cut CSBG nearly in half. And again, you notice the language that comes right out of the budget proposal, making CSBG more accountable for outcomes, the whole notion of course standards and accountability again. I felt that it's important in this presentation to portray that this movement is not just at the federal level. So here is a state level focus instituted by the Pew Center on the States in conjunction with the MacArthur Foundation. Basically, it's called Results First, highlighting that the framework of this initiative is to help states use data-based decisions based on results by assessing costs and benefits. And if you notice, there are currently 12 states who are involved with Results First. It came out of a model that was developed in Washington State, and you can see the flow chart there on the left showing how this particular model works toward calculating return on investment, looking at programs, assessing them collectively in terms of how they compare with each other. The whole notion about, gosh, what is that, 5 bullets down on the left there, identify ineffective programs to be eliminated, and ultimately getting better results with less cost. This is Results First. The link there, you can access their material through that link at the bottom. Now we have an example of a local framework that I thought was important. I know where I'm based in Central Virginia, I've seen our United Way, for example, as well as our local government planning processes begin to focus more and more and more on demanding outcome data, looking at results, emphasizing certain priorities for programming. This particular model that I'm sharing with you is out of Sonoma County, California. It's called Upstream Investments. And I think it's very relevant to us in that if you notice what it's all about is to eliminate poverty. It sounds a little bit like community action, I would say. But nonetheless, if you look at the strategies toward the bottom there, the 3 strategies, prevention, interventions, looking at selecting interventions that are backed by sound evidence, and then by having some specific targeted factors and indicators of success, which I'll go to here on the next slide. You can access, let me go back for a second, excuse me. You can access upstream investments through the link at the top of this slide. And as I said, I will be forwarding the material to you within the next day or so. And this is some of the material that you're able to access. The logic model on the left, I think, is a wonderful tool that you might care to adapt. Let me give you a copy of that on our screen here. Okay. And so you can see how they have their goals outlined. There are basically 4 goals with their interventions showing it in the third one from the left, upstream interventions, scaling basically from what they call Tier 1 evidence-based practices going down to Tier 3, which is emerging practices. So they are looking at a various range of involvement of programs, some that are very heavily researched and seem to be effective, to others that are promising and still emerging. But basically taking them all together to focus on the targeted factors in the second, in the center of this screen. You could see the social and economic factors and the family and individual factors. But really, most importantly, I feel, as we move along on this particular logic model, are the last 2 columns, the indicators of success and the impacts. And I think, as many of you have seen in the Roma logic model and other similar tools that you may be using for your agency, that there are a lot of really good examples on this upstream investment presentation that would fit really nicely into the work that you're involved with. And if we go back to the slide here, okay. If we go back to the slide, you'll notice on the right, this one actually is a little different than the handout that was forwarded to you for today's webinar. And the reason for that is there are now 2 reports that have been issued. I just found this last one late this morning. There's a report from 2012, the one on the upper right, and then one from 2011 below that. If you open those reports up, you'll see the specific goals and indicators of success under each goal. And then more or less it's presented as what you might call a dashboard. It's a tool you can use for number 1, management, for planning, for management, to track your progress over time, and then ultimately to evaluate how you've done and to adapt your work to do better as you move along. But I really think these tools that are put together by Upstream Investments are invaluable, and I strongly, strongly urge you to look into them. In fact, at our annual convention, the Community Action Partnerships Convention in Chicago, we have proposed a workshop that will include presentations from the CAP of Sonoma leaders who have been involved in this work in their county. And a quick aside, the executive director of that agency has now been hired to actually oversee the countywide effort in this area. Here's another initiative, local initiative, and this one also is in Sonoma County, and they work together upstream in Cradle to Career. I think if you were to look at the 5 goals that have been created for Cradle to Career, these will probably parallel much of the work that many of you are involved with. It's basically a continuum to help children through their early years be school ready, of course, to do well in school, to look at what's next beyond school, to have the community really working at its maximum potential and everyone having that opportunity. What I like about Cradle to Career, they have a framework which you can open where each of those 5 goals we just looked at has a series of evidence-based recommendations. And so this is a 4-page framework with 5 goals that have 23 recommendations tied to evidence-based practices. And if you access their website, which was on the previous slide, you can get a copy of a report they put together called Key Findings from Literature and Potential Strategies, which gives you access to resources under each goal that we just looked at. So having looked at what we're feeling across the country at the federal, at the state, and at the local level, I thought I would share with you a little bit of work that I went through last February through perhaps July or August, actually 2011, I'm sorry. So almost 2 years ago, after the President's State of the Union address, I began tracking the coverage of community action news articles in relation to the potential of losing 50% of the community service block grant funding. And you can see here some of the headlines that were featured over that 5 or 6 month period. And I tracked them for that period of time. And it was really interesting to me, maybe it's typical, that for the first, gosh, I would say 45 to 60 days, there was a flurry of coverage where agencies across the country began reacting to the State of the Union. However, after July or August, after about 6 months, there really was no further coverage about the potential concerns of losing CSBG. And so what struck me at that point is where are we as a network? Is this business as usual? Did we hear the dramatic statement of President Obama, have a flurry of activity, and now we think it's business as usual? Oftentimes I'll do a poll at this point in the webinar and ask that question, and really universally I can gladly say that I don't feel anyone in our network sees us at a time right now where we can refer to it as business as usual. So what are we doing as a network to help us continue to advance the importance and the value of community action and CSBG? Of course, we have our annual IS reports and the highlights that come out of that, which are really very impressive if you take a look at the national reports or pull the ones out for your own states. I think it really makes us feel good. I mean, look at all the great work we're doing, serving millions of families and working with communities across the U.S. But when you break this down to your own agency, it doesn't always get the kind of traction that is so important. It's a key to what we're doing. It's a piece of it, but there's more that, that we're needing to put in place, of course. I know many of you are familiar with the standards of excellence for community action. This has been in place for a number of years through the Community Action Partnership. I put this slide up largely because of the facet of it that links with the whole notion of documenting and using results both to evaluate what you're doing and to plan your future efforts within your organization. Another reason I put it up here is at the bottom of the screen you'll notice there are some technical assistance guides that you can access from the partnership's website. That's a link that will take you there. So I encourage you to look at what kinds of tools and resources you can bring in to build your agency. And as I mentioned, one category itself has been tagged as a focus on organizational results. Certainly there are other efforts underway. The partnership has launched the National Training Center that's been doing a lot of great work over the last couple of years. Just recently there's a new Center of Excellence on Organizational Standards, which I'll show you more from in a moment. This relates obviously to the language that came in the budget through the last 2 years that I spoke of a few moments ago. And then NASCASP as well has been putting in motion the State Performance Management Clearinghouse and the new Roma Center of Excellence. results-oriented management and accountability. I certainly hope there is not a single person who is unfamiliar with ROMA who's on this phone call. There's more information on these available through the partnership and NASCAS. As I mentioned, the partnership has been putting together a great effort in a very short period of time to draft a set of organizational performance standards that will be universally applied to community action throughout the country. The comment period here is still open. There's about another week or so. You can see. If you haven't reviewed these yet, please immediately go to the partnership's website, communityactionpartnership.com, and pull those down, and you'll see ways to comment on them. But you'll notice there are 9 categories and 58 standards that have been proposed in this draft. And what I particularly wanted to mention, of course, is that the whole idea of being an outcome-based organization and an anti-poverty focused organization is right there in the early phases, early components of these standards. Also looking at strategic planning and how looking at reducing, empowering people, revitalizing low-income communities, and reducing poverty, helping promote self-sufficiency. So these are the themes that continue as we work with the performance standards. Both standards of excellence had them, and now the organizational performance standards are continuing as well. And finally, the other community action networks that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, state associations under the Regional Performance and Innovation Consortia as well. So here we are, rolling along, approaching our 50th anniversary in the world of community action. And this is one of my favorite quotes. We may think we're on a great track moving ahead, but guess what? We have to adapt. And I certainly think that's one of the strengths of our network. So what I want to share with you now, as we move into the second half of the webinar, are some strategic resources that you could put into action to help you position yourself as an organization in this changing environment. And the first one has to do with sustainability. Virtual CAP, which I'll get to at the end, is a project that I've been involved with now for more than 10 years. And we have a feature of the month. Recently, this was out there in November last year. This is a book that was written by people who have been very active in the nonprofit sector. You can purchase the book. I'm not hawking it. I get nothing back from it. But I do want to say there's some really helpful information, and there's actually, I believe it's a DVD that you can use, or a CD, to create some spreadsheets and to work through your organizational activities to see what is it that you're doing on the bottom left and the bottom right matrices. What is it you're doing that has the strongest impact on your agency's mission, as well as the highest level of financial sustainability? So what this model does, if you look at the one on the left, is first of all, put all of your work into one of 4 quadrants. And I guess the visual is pretty self-explanatory. If you look at the bottom left, if you have activities that are not greatly enhancing work toward your mission and are draining your organization financially, what would you want to do with them? Probably it's not worth continuing those, okay? On the other hand, you can work to get the upper left and lower right quadrants to become a star, which is what you see in the right-hand quadrant, the one that has your greatest impact on your mission and your highest sustainability. So if you have a program that really means a lot to your work and to the community that you're serving in terms of affecting change and promoting self-sufficiency, but it's low profitability, moving it into the star quadrant would be in your best interest. How can we make it more profitable? And the book gives you a lot of good illustrations about this. And so you can see on the right what some of the strategies are that can be used to get as much as you're doing into that star quadrant. And you can download the maps through the link that's showing on the screen. I want to share with you 2 books that are available for free to really help you as tools create what's looked at here, a performance culture. This is from Venture Philanthropy Partners. Mario Marino is the leader of this effort. I know Region 3 has been doing some specific work, and one of the key experts in this area was a speaker at the Community Action Partnerships Winter Conference in San Diego this past January. This book here is called Leap of Reason, Managing to Outcomes in an Era of Scarcity. As I mentioned, you can go to the link where it says get the book. You can download it for free, or you can order a copy of it. I think you have to pay a very small postage charge. And what this framework is all about is basically helping your organizational leadership, which would be your board and senior staff, really begin to strategically develop, again, what's called a performance culture. From there, then, it begins looking at how are you going to create your framework, your theory of change, to truly manage to outcomes, the whole word outcomes again. And what we're really lucky to have, once this book went out, shortly thereafter, a follow-up book came out called Working Hard, Working Well, A Practical Guide to Performance Management. I very, very strongly suggest that you look at Leap of Reason and likewise take a look at Working Hard, Working Well. Again, this book is available for free. Use the link at the upper part of the slide here. And I put under that 4 of the chapters that come out of the book. You can download them separately. The second one down, How to Get Started Introspection, is really a tremendous tool that walks you through a workshop, a several-day workshop with tools you can use with your board and staff to begin building a theory of change within your organization, which basically looks at what works and what doesn't work, going back to the sustainability and mission impact piece that I spoke of, and looking at how you're going to put together strategic goals and objectives and monitor performance to make sure you're on track to achieve what you're setting out to do. So again, this was a Feature of the Month resource a couple of months ago. So please take your time, if you can, to take a look at Working Hard, Working Well, as well as Leap of Reason. I really like this visual that's available through the Center for What Works. And wouldn't you know it, the way they frame it, it's called, where's your organization on the result trail? I think it would behoove every single community action agency to ask themselves that question. Where is your community action agency on the result trail? And if you look at the points within the pathway that's presented here, it starts out by defining what you mean by success. It talks about the whole piece of outcomes again. How are you going to manage what you're doing towards seeing your progress toward those goals, your leadership within your organization, communicating this and learning from what you're doing, and ultimately becoming a high performer. Again, this graphic can be downloaded. But what's really great from the Center for What Works, they have 2 online tools that you can access. One is their online outcomes framework browser. And in this, you can see they have 14 program areas. I've listed out 6 or 7 different ones, which I thought would be related to a lot of the work that we're involved with in community action. And then they also have on the right-hand side some more or less generic outcome tools where you can create your own based on whatever program, or if you're looking at a particular target audience or a community-based initiative, you can build your outcomes through this framework. It's available for free. It's a simple registration process. So I would again encourage that you look at that. And if you're looking for some examples of how different indicators are framed, and also what kind of data collection you might be considering, you can find that within this tool. The second online resource they offer is called their Impact Measurement Framework. Slightly different. The two can be worked together, but this is a second one. And in here, based on your mission or impact statement for your agency or a particular program within your agency, again, they work you through a step-by-step process to pick a program area, and then to select from the outcomes that they've identified as examples, and begin building what are your indicators of success, the measures you're going to do, and from that you can actually print out an impact measurement framework. So this is another really good tool that that you can access. Okay. Okay, I have gone through a little more than half of the presentation. I'm wondering, Jay, do you have any questions at this point that you've received that might need to be?
There's one question, Ken, you can answer. It's in your question box.
Okay, let me see if I can find that. I'm not sure I can see it. What is it?
Sorry. Isn't there an understanding that social science can't be measured the same as hard science, such as medical science?
You know, that's a great segue to the next section of the webinar. I'm not trying to evade that, but let me move on with that. It's a very good question. What is the evidence? First of all, there are great issues of the location of interventions. When you talk about social service or human service interventions, there's the economic environment that we're dealing with. There's the cultural environment. There are the outside factors that I guess would be science-based as well as social-based. So there are a lot of different factors that go into evidence-based research. And the reason I said that's a great segue to the next part of the presentation is, in fact, I don't subscribe to evidence-based as being the be-all and end-all. And if you do evidence-based, if you try to replicate an evidence-based program, will you absolutely be successful? The answer is, of course not. There are too many factors and variables in terms of time and setting and resources and personnel that go into it. So the whole notion that we'll just find a great evidence-based program and we'll do it in our own organization, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. On the other hand, there are other ways of determining what works, what's making a difference in the lives of families and communities. And I'd like to suggest to you what the slide you're looking at right now, what's called an inclusive evidence base to improve outcomes. This was from a presentation that I attended in 2011, July of 2011, put on by CLASP, where there was a panel of some very high-level researchers, as well as Representative Lee Shore from the Center for the Study of Social Policy. And I really, really, really like the idea that pulling together experiential awareness on lessons learned, on showing what's making a difference, looking at the practical knowledge and experience that people in the field have is very valuable. It's not just what we've studied across a rigorous longitudinal frame of time. So here we have a chart which I'm going to move along from, actually, because there's an article I want to get to, a couple of slides from here, that Lee Shore put together. Here is a cycle of looking at, this is a lot like the Roma cycle, actually, those of you who are familiar with that, looking at how to begin planning what the intervention is that we would like to institute to deal with particular problems, looking at how it's going, adapting along the way, making changes in areas that aren't working as well as we thought, down to the bottom there, looking at changing problem or other problems that come up, and finally looking at what the common factors are in these programs that are really working well. Having said that, I really wanted to show this article. This is another one that I guess I'm kind of highlighting a few specifics within this presentation. But this article here from the Center for the Study of Social Policy by Lee Shore, broader evidence for bigger impact, I think is invaluable. To somewhat answer that question of how do we, in the field of community action, that is a lot different than scientific study, pull together the type of knowledge to build our programs in a way that they will truly give us the results that we're looking for. So what Lee Shore points out are what I'm showing here in this outline. First of all, I want to read a quote, a two-sentence quote out of that paper before I get into this slide. And what she says is, no one questions President Barack Obama's insistence that public funds should go to social programs that work and not to those that don't. The controversy is about how we know what works and the types of evidence that prudent investors should consider credible. So with that, what she is encouraging is that we look at the 4 principles at the top. The third bullet down is the one that I was just referring to, is that we look at credible evidence from multiple sources. And likewise then, we look at what are the core components, the common elements of successful interventions. So pulling out from programs that are making a difference, some of the things that look like we could add them to what we're doing that will strengthen our work. And looking at the multiple sources, the next set of bullets in the middle show where those sources can be drawn from. Certainly the experimental evidence-based evaluations, but also other evaluations that may not have the control groups or the long-term study that an evidence-based evaluation would have, other research, and then finally practice and experience. Okay, I don't think any of these by themselves really are going to be adequate, but pulling from all of them is where we will become stronger and stronger. You know, I'm back to Sonoma County, California, where upstream investments and cradle-to-career are found. And what I wanted to point out here, leaving this part of the webinar in a moment, is what they've done in Sonoma County is created a mechanism within their own organization to make sure that everything they're doing follows best practices and are, to the degree possible, evidence-based. And I would suggest the evidence-based piece comes up with the community-wide initiatives that we saw earlier, upstream investments and cradle-to-career. But I point this out to really urge every agency to start thinking, what do I have in my own organization that's going to provide us with the type of technical assistance, the type of research, the type of assessment of what we're doing that may or may not be truly pulling in the best practices that we can access to improve our work. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to create a separate division as CAP Sonoma has, but certainly there are other ways, whether it's within an existing department or working collaboratively among your program personnel or other staff. But I think without having that capacity within your own organization, there's a lot of opportunity that A, will be missed. There will be a lot of slippage that could occur. And I think the agencies that have these mechanisms are going to be at the head of the curve as this becomes more and more a focus in the very near future. Okay, the last part of the webinar here, I'm going to run through some online clearinghouses where you can begin to draw down resources and material that are on what I call generically what works. Okay, the State Performance Management Clearinghouse that NASCASP has been building has program models and organizational practices under 4 categories of criteria: evidence-based, evidence-informed, exemplary, and promising. And in particular, the 5 focus areas that you've been seeing on your slide are where the material has been sorted through, largely through an OCS grant. And I'll leave you with this slide. I'm not going to review it in depth, but it certainly provides the definitions of the 4 levels of what's working, starting with the most rigorous evidence-based level, moving on down, similar to what Capsanoma had, but with a little different terminology. Not Capsanoma, I'm sorry. I should say upstream investments. So I hope this is not new for most of you, but if it is, you will have a link to go to that. The CSBG Training and Technical Assistance Resource Center. If you, at the bottom right there, use the image we have, you can access it. Very quick and easy registration process. And once you get on there, if you notice at the top menu selections, there's a resource bank. So you'll sign on and go to the resource bank. And I've had to split this into 2 slides. The first one, these are advanced search categories, asks you to identify, if you so care to, you don't need to select these search criteria, but are you looking for a particular type of resource? And notice evidence-based or informed is one selection, exemplary or promising is another, along with some other material. And by the way, the Community Action Partnership has also been populating this clearinghouse with some toolkits and training material that are really very helpful that you will also be able to access. And so you can notice there's more search filters that you can run through by the type of request you have, the outcome categories, different target groups, and so on. And so what I've done is pulled together some material just to give you a very, very limited taste to start of some of the searches you can do. And so I pulled together employment services, and I filtered it out through program-specific employment services was my filter. You'll see presently there are 50 items on there, and almost half of them are evidence-based or evidence-informed. Under youth as a target group, there are now 30 items on there with 12 of them evidence-based or evidence-informed. And finally, youth employment services, I thought let's look at both of those categories together. There are 21 items, and about half of them are evidence-based and evidence-informed. So here's some examples of the type of material that that's featured. This is a report out of Ohio State University, their Learning Work Connection, from their What Works Evidence-Based Strategies for Youth Practitioners. And so what they've done is, there are 2 slides on this one. They've shown what some of the best practices are for occupational skill training. And if you recall from the article by Lee Shore, looking at some of the core elements, well, here they are. Here are 6 core elements. So you can begin assessing your work with youth and skill training and see, are there pieces of this that you might build upon for your own work. And then in addition to that, this particular report includes 10 examples of research-based work that's being carried out, or that had been when the report was compiled. And I know from the awareness that I have around the country, I know there are community action agencies that do culinary training programs. I know there are many that do micro-enterprise programs. There are some that do apprenticeship programs. So here are some great examples of initiatives that would fit well into what we're involved with. Here's a second resource that's called the Work-Based Foundation Skills Framework from the Pennsylvania let me get to my notes here, okay, from the Pennsylvania Bureau of Adult Basic and Literary Education. And so you can open up the report, and what I suggest whenever you find this material on the clearinghouse is to do some internet research to follow up on what's being covered in these documents. So in other words, while the full report may lead you in a direction, you can often then take from that, okay, let me see what else is out there on the Work-Based Foundation Skills Framework. And you'll have this link on the copy of the presentation, but you'll see a 28-page booklet that gives you a visual of their Foundation Skills Wheel. It shows you the 4 areas that are included in that, and then a whole great range of information on specific competencies that fit into each of those areas. Okay. Here's another one from University of Tennessee, their Center for Literacy Studies, on a curriculum built around these 4 questions. A lot of this is very generic that would fit for youth, adults, or maybe even in some of your general family development work. They built this particular report by having focus groups with various stakeholders, by reviewing literature and curricula that's out there. So it really has a strong foundation. This one we've categorized as exemplary practice. Okay, it doesn't have data per se, but it has a strong level of research and experiential involvement in building it. The last one I'm sharing is a Green Pathways framework put together by the Court Network in conjunction with other groups. And this one's really cool, I think. It has some great models to look at building your program. But what I really like about it is it fits really nicely into the emerging efforts. As many of you know, the Community Action Partnership has been involved with job creation and green jobs. And there are other groups across the country. If you look in the bottom left box there, you can access all those reports. So again, here's an example where you can get a good foundation by the report that's featured here, but then doing further research and often looking in the reports themselves will have references to other resources. You can even get further along than just reading the individual report. Finally, as we're getting about to close out here, certainly the CSBG Resource Bank is developing. It's in progress. There's a lot on there now, and there will continue to be more added to it. But I wanted to make sure that all of you were familiar with other online clearinghouses that you can access. So I've listed 8 of them here. And along with the presentation, I have a copy of a PDF document that has all 8 of them listed. Those are all links that will take you directly to those clearinghouses. But just to walk you or really run you through what they feature, here was the Coalition for Evidence-Based Practice. You can see the areas that they have identified to sort their work through. They have what they call top-tier or near-tier interventions, and these are for different groups that I just sorted them for you, youth and so on. The Promising Practices Network, you can see how they have sorted their clearinghouse. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is that there's a great amount of material that can fit right into the work that you're doing in so many different ways. I hope when you're looking at these that you quickly see, without even having to blink your eye, that, oh, I do that. Oh, we need that in our community. Oh, I really want to hear how they're building their work, how they're creating their outcome areas and indicators, such as the Promising Practices network in these different areas. I mean, right on this one slide, we have Ready for School, Succeeding School, and Strong Families. I don't think there's a community action agency in the country that wouldn't fit into one or more of these categories. and we go through. There are more of them as we go through. So as I said, there are 8 in total. And having shown you that, I'm going to wrap it up here since it's just shortly before 3 p.m. Eastern Time. As I mentioned earlier, I've been involved with Virtual CAP now for, gosh, going on 11 years. I hope you're familiar with it. It's a website you can freely access with a lot of material for you to use in your agency. You can download the flyer to look at that front and back. And keep up with us on Virtual CAP through Twitter or subscribing to our RSS feeds or signing up for our Feature of the Month. And there's my contact information if you'd like to drop me a line, give me feedback on the webinar, any comments, questions, ideas to improve this. Call me if needed. I'm very happy to provide support and get your thoughts on this. So we have a few minutes. Jay, did you see any further questions?
There is one other question, but I'll let you decide if you want to answer that right now. You'll need to take your PowerPoint out of full screen.
Okay. What do you want me to do? I'm sorry.
Take your PowerPoint out of full screen. Now you'll see the question box in your control panel.
No, I do.
And there's a question in it.
Okay.
And if you're showing all the answered ones, you can uncheck the box.
Oh, my Lord. All I see is your slides are not changing.
No. There's a box at the top that says Show Answered Questions. Uncheck that.
Oh, okay, I'm good. Sorry.
You should have one question in there.
Oh, my gosh, looks like a long one. Is it?
It is.
No problem. I just couldn't see it on my screen. Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I have to try to summarize the question. I guess the issue is with the movement toward strengthening the organizational performance standards, when it seems like a lot of the emphasis really from the funding and political environment is on evidence-based practices, how do the two fit together if in fact they do? And I certainly think they do. Unless our organizations are strong enough to really manage the work, make hard decisions, participate in the community, collaborate internally and externally, I don't think having an evidence-based program in its own right is really going to get us that far. Like I said earlier, evidence-based, although I think really the question is more programs that have been proven to work rather than just strictly evidence-based, is not the be-all and end-all. It's a part of the equation. But having strong, thriving organizations, building programs that work collectively, I think the framework that Mary Marino, the What Works framework, Leap of Reason framework, is essential to make sure that everything we do is working toward having a high-level impact on our organization's mission. And I know there's some community action agencies that are doing that right now. Everyone in the organization knows their role, understands how it fits into the mission, and works toward that end. So I don't think there's a disconnect. I think they're both at least on an equal plane. I hope that answers that. We're still about half a minute away. Any other questions? If not, I do again want to thank you for participating, for attending today. You'll get an email with a copy of the presentation and a link to the recording. Feel free to respond with any comments or questions to that email. So with that, I am going to sign off. Thank you, Sandra, for this opportunity, and NASCAP, and Jay for your technical support. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.